Yeah, it's always weird to follow someone like Angel with that much energy. I'll try to keep it as much on like the Polish standard of a high level of energy. And also always follow up when someone puts your company's name as one of the frameworks and a bit, discourages it, or I don't know, I felt like. So yeah, I do agile transformations, product transformations. I do a lot of these famous so-called Spotify models that some of you might have heard, although I don't believe they're Spotify models, but yeah, so I do a lot of that. I work with a lot of big incumbent companies, traditional companies that are now trying to follow the buzzword and be more agile, right? So that's where I've been. I've done some in Poland. I've mostly been doing them in Western Europe, Africa, Asia, North America. COVID made that more possible because I didn't have to travel there. I could just do it virtually. And I've seen a lot of teams working. I've seen a lot of companies where they're saying, oh, we've been doing Agile for many, many years, and what are you changing? What is going to be different? Hence, we sat down and we do have a partnership with Scrum.org around research and thinking about what is the value of Agile, right? Because in consultancy, everything has to be given a value or some sort of return on investment. And doing Agile for the sake of just doing Agile, I think for me and probably for many of you is also not why you do it and why you're passionate about it, right? But what we've seen is that everyone talks about like how agility and Scrum is bringing amazing value, amazing performance, whether it's the state of Agile, which talks about 94 companies are working in Agile. Harvard Business Review talking about like that companies that apply Agile practices are better performing, bringing better results. Or our research around employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and many others all talk about the great benefits of agility. So I think we're winners, right? I mean, it's amazing. Yes, it's done. We're successful. Agile has done it. We have made companies successful. We've made banks, telcos, you name it, companies that, it's the source of it's going to solve everything. But is it the truth? Is it really the truth that companies that start working Agile, teams that start working in Agile are successful? And you've probably seen this, right? You maybe some of you already experienced it, right? So does everyone have a different measure of success? And a lot of teams I've seen, different teams, different companies, or even teams within a company measure success in a very different way. Some measure it just on performance, some measure it just on velocity, others measure it using OKRs, balanced scorecards, and all that. Others is like, my favorite is that, I think Angel mentioned it, right? The status, like how many things do we have in our backlog and how many of them are done? I mean, I love it, and I think what he mentioned about the 7 out of 9 and the why and what have you been doing all the time, and this whole focus on utilization is all things we know. And the final, and again, I completely agree with what he said, is the customers, right? And there's this mysterious customer, or my favorite, user, right? I mean, all of us have written user stories. I remember starting as a product owner writing user stories as a user. They were always my favorite. Who is this user? Don't talk about it. We have this user somewhere, usually the CEO, but who cares about that? Building apps just to work on the Apple iPhone because the CEO has the iPhone. I even created once a version of an app that had worked when somebody had the increased size of the font, because our CEO didn't have very good eyesight, so he always had the increased font on the phone, and he would say like, well, this doesn't look good. So we actually had to create a separate look and feel for the app just for our CEO's iPhone. So hey, there's a lot of these things that are happening, and there's this huge pursuit of value, this hunt for value. And what is value, right? And it's all over in Scrum as well, right? So we're constantly thinking about, and you know this, right? What are Scrum for? And some of you have done this and worked in this before. So we now take our current way that projects are done, and we call our PMO our now Agile PMO, right? It's my favorite. Now we're doing an Agile transformation. So now we're going from PMO to Agile PMO. We're going to go from objectives and key results to objectives and deliverables, because it's OKRs. We have to be like Google, right? Let's watch that one video by John Doerr. So you have all of this, right? You have the work backlog. Then you go to definition of ready gate, no sprint goal, you do sprint backlog. Day by day, you look at your Jira and like, oh, good, okay, you're doing your thing, continue doing what you're doing. We do then have a management review of the progress, and I like how in many companies I've actually seen it, they don't even call it a sprint review anymore. They call it their sprint steerco or the sprint jour fix, where they go to the management board and they tell them, we're doing it, we're working in Agile, boss. Here is our to-do list, here it is. We're progressing nicely, turning it to a Gantt chart, an Agile Gantt chart. It's like amazing things, yeah. And then, of course, all of this is perfect, and we go into the release process. And of course, we need release managers in all Agile teams, right? You know this, and it's the truth, right? This is how it's supposed to be done. No, but just double checking. I saw some nods in the room, so just checking if like you get this. Well, okay. So we've seen this, and I think many of us have unfortunately experienced Scrum fall or Scrum butt or any other forms of these altercations where it's just about getting things done and increasing velocity. So this is when we, as McKinsey and a couple of my colleagues from the US, together with Dave West from Scrum.org and his and some PSTs, decided to think about, are teams really delivering value or just doing work? And I think this research started, this discussion started over a year ago. I think it was January 2021. We started thinking, hey, this is an interesting topic. Let's look into it. So why is it important, and why did we believe that this is an important topic to discuss, right? So when teams are focusing on value, they are more flexible. So instead of just doing things in the sprint backlog, you actually start focusing on achieving the sprint goal and thinking about, what do I want? Why do we want to do this? What are we trying to achieve? Instead of just hacking off another Jira ticket. If we understand the purpose, we can also self-manage how we do this work, but we can also get it, I think, done in a better quality and with better results. And finally, if we understand the purpose and the value we're bringing to the customers, we will put them there. We'll put them first, and we will make it simpler to use. I've done many times, and I'm not proud of, where we put our, let's say, customer service or ourselves as the primary customers and not our own customers, right? So make sure that it's easy for us to upload the data or get the data from our customers. Let's make sure that we have all the necessary data, instead of actually thinking, how do we make this easier for our customers? Like banks and versus Revolut, for example. Like all of you know, if you want to open an account in a bank versus open an account in Revolut, it's a much simpler process, right? And I try to explain that to a telco executive. Very, very interesting conversation. So, and we also see that in the recent update of the Scrum Guide, there is even more focus on value as well, right? So the product goal is there, but the sprint planning has changed in a way to focus on value. So this is all happening, right? All of these things are being changed. So what has our initial research done? And we've done this with around 60 companies end of the year. We now go up to 90. And what we've seen is that 90% of respondents say that they have a clear understanding who they're delivering it for, but on the other hand, are not aware of like why this is the thing we're doing, right? So they get the value, but they just don't know why this is the value we're supposed to deliver. They don't get the point. Many times the actual work or the focus comes down to them. It's sort of like given. Here is your thing, just do it, without the ability to challenge it. So something very important here, that we see this, and overall, as we have increased the number of companies, this trend doesn't change. So is there a problem, or is there no problem? We believe there is a problem. And what we've done to check that, we actually interviewed several PSTs. So like some of them are saying that IT is just a cost center, right? IT is supposed to just deliver stuff for the business. We've also seen situations where it's just about outcomes. There is no focus on there's just outputs. There's no focus on the outcome. So let's just make sure that the teams are delivering more and more, without really thinking about why they're doing it. And finally, talking to Ken Schwaber, when he talks about that executives, when they think about Agile, they think, hey, so instead of finding what I don't want or finding my product instead of 18 months, I'll get it in 30 days. Probably you'll find out you just got a product you don't want in 30 days instead of 18 months. And this is also part of the Agile way of working. So what we did is we also then just do a quick review of this with a bigger group of PSTs and ask them what have they observed. And sorry. Oh, sorry. That's PSTs are the professional Scrum trainers, right? So the very selective group of Scrum.org people that went through quite an intense training or intense assessment to see that they are fit to be trainers. It's a very small group, and they are sort of the thought leaders in how agility is done. So we tested this, and unfortunately, most of them said that when they go to companies, what they observe is what they heard, what we got from these interviews, is that a lot of times Agile is just there to get things done, just get things done without actually thinking, why are we getting these things done? I'm just wondering, what is your perspective? Do you, as people that work in Agile teams, do you always understand why you're doing the things you're doing, or you're just doing just to get things done? Raise of hands who knows their exact purpose of the team, and do you understand who your customer is? Do you understand what value you are bringing? How about we raise your hand? Okay, that's not too many hands. Okay. And the Motorola people? You should all raise your hand. Come on, it's getting recorded. Oh no, I'm getting recorded, not you, so it's fine. Let's continue. Don't mention it. No, but I can tell you that in a lot of organizations, and these organizations that they say they're Agile in the core, and they've been Agile for many years. Some of the pioneers in Poland as well. When you get into the nitty-gritty and you really ask them the hard questions, they're just say, okay, it's just my boss or the hippo, right? Highest paid person's opinion is what really drives the value of our company. So we've identified, I think, 4 key missed opportunities, and I'll talk about each of them. The first one is that management treats Agile teams just like cogs in a machine. So pretty much Taylorism from the 1890s of factory comes back to Agile teams. So Agile teams are the new factory. They're just supposed to get things done by one, and that's how they're measured, and that's what their purpose is. Next is, instead of prioritizing on value or value matrix, you prioritize on filling the team's capacity. Make sure that all the people, and we're paying them a lot of money, are 100% utilized. I just had this conversation 2 days ago with head of IT at a beauty brand in Paris, where I'm talking about, hey guys, it takes 12 months for you to release emails. It's a CRM platform where it just gets emails done pretty much to customers, automizing it. It takes them 3 to 9 months even to create an automation of one email. And they're like, oh, but we're utilized 100%. Everyone is doing something. Like, well, let's talk about why this is happening. Oh, no. Utilization is our key measure of success. Next is Agile coaching. Unfortunately, and I'm an Agile coach, has a bias towards making sure that the teams are doing Agile right. I'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, is the team really engaged with the customer? Is the team really putting the customer first? So these are, I think, 4 missed opportunities we have identified from our research. So if we look at the first one, what we found out is that 48% of people agree that the team purpose is handed down to them. They come and they join, they're a team, and somebody comes in, this is your purpose. This is why you're here. This is your reason for existence. If you think about drive and what really motivates us, right? Where we say that the people need a purpose to be fully motivated. But if somebody tells you what your purpose is, that's not going to be really motivating, right? Next is participants disagreed that the team members were empowered to challenge the organizational goals. So there is no way to ask for that. Like, why are we doing this, and why is this important? And then finally, that but the budgeting process is not transparent, right? So you just don't know where the money comes from. And a lot of times we hear about PI planning or QBRs or OKRs and as the solution for that. I unfortunately have seen companies where they take their current portfolio of projects and they start matching it to OKRs. So pretty much what they do is they take OKRs are objectives and key results, right? So they're supposed to be drive more the outcomes, not outputs, but they're turned into the same thing. So nothing really changes. So how can we make this? How can we change this? How can we really use this to make our teams better and really use this opportunity, right? Involve the product owners in the budget discussions. Make sure that they are aware of how and where the money is coming from, and how are the teams getting financed, and what are the measures of success, and also what is the return on investment. A big, always I think we overuse sometimes in many Scrum trainings, but something, if the product owner understands the cost, he will also understand what he needs to do to make sure that the team is successful, right? Empower the developers to make decisions on architecture, to really own what they build, and not have this given to them in sometimes a 250-page technical Bible. That's my favorite. And there's always an architect who's there to ensure that you follow it. There's the architecture police who comes when you don't do something according to that. And usually no teams do it by the book because it's just too overcomplicated and it would slow things down. So again, if you have an agile team that takes 9 months to develop something and release it to customers, are you really agile if you're working in 2-week sprints, right? It's like these things that you need to test. And make sure that whatever the decisions you're making, you involve the teams. You ask them, you work with them. So whenever we do agile transformations, we have what we call a sounding board, where we take people from across different levels and different parts of the organization, and we ask them what is not working now and what are things you want to change. And we do that every 3 months during the transformation to constantly get their feedback on what is working, what is not working, what do we need to change. So make sure that product owners are involved in the budgetary discussions, developers are owning what and how they work, and finally do proper change management and really ask the teams to be involved and ask them what is the thing they want to change and how is it helping them or not helping them. The next opportunity is the work is prioritized by the size, right? So again, we saw that during sprint planning, 46% of teams focus on capacity and utilization. So I'm just wondering, how many of you in sprint planning talk about utilization as like, hey, let's make sure we fill in the gap. Like we get our, capacity. We have 40 hours of capacity. Let's make sure we have 40, or let's do that math around 80. So, we have that 20% buffer, but our main goal is to make sure that our velocity is 40 story points. Let's get those 38. How many of you have done that? Yeah, I mean, I did it. Don't worry. I mean, it's like, it's the interpretation, right? It's many times this happens. But is this the true measure of success? Is this how you can deliver value? By filling in your capacity to your magical 80%, or sometimes even, let's say, 60 or 40 or whatever. So next is, they do, sometimes teams, and only like 20% of teams felt that they deliver value, or that they are working on something that gives them a purpose, a feeling of achievement. So what can you do to make sure you use this opportunity? Again, the PO being the key nexus here. I think all of you agree that a good PO really makes a team successful. And of course, together with the team, what really brings that perspective of the big picture is that he or she needs to be involved. Make sure that the POs are involved with the management, that they are part of the discussions, that they can also share their perspective. Constantly look at the matrix. So the concept of dashboards, which is sometimes misunderstood, or not, many teams do not have them, right? A source of truth. How are we doing? How are we performing? And what metrics are we tracking to make sure we are performing? And finally, celebrate, but not only celebrate as a team, but celebrate as leaders. Come to your teams, leave that boardroom, and join the teams in this celebration. Whenever I do these leadership trainings with clients, one of the funniest things, and this happened like in 80% of the cases, that one of the things they realize is they need to leave their offices, right? So it's like, wow, that's just amazing. Very funny that it works 80% of the time. Like, hey guys, leave your office, go talk to your teams. What do you mean? They can always come to me if they have a problem. Yeah, probably some of you have heard that. Of course I'm available. Just ask my secretary. I have all these meetings with my people. But do you really like go into a sprint review? Or do you talk to the teams, the developers, the POs? Do you talk to them about their work? Are you interested? Are you genuinely interested in the work? Or you just go in and do like a PR stunt, sort of like, hey, take a picture. Hey, I'm here. Type of like, I have not seen that. And a lot of times I've seen where the leaders leave their room to join the teams in the open floor. But what they do is they turn their room into a meeting room and they just sit there 8% of the time, 80%, 90% of the time. Well, but hey, they left the room, right? Another client of mine actually removed all doors to offices of bosses to make sure it's like an open door policy. But this needs to change, and we need to make sure that people are involved. Finally, agile coaching, and me as an agile coach, and probably what I do is this did hurt a bit. That we've seen that a lot of times Scrum Masters focus on velocity, speed, and not on making the right value-based decisions, right? So Scrum Master really focuses on making sure that we have all the things that need to be there. We do the checklist, and the team is now doing Scrum properly. We make sure we have proper Jira tracking, that the burn down chart is looking great and all that. But they don't really understand, and they don't challenge why the team is doing what they're doing. Also, and this comes out from the survey, that 50% of people said that most of the work that the Scrum Master Agile Coach does is to ensure that Agile is, or Scrum is done the right way, by the book. But on the other hand, when we started doing sort of like a true analysis of it, we found out that if the Agile Coach focuses on alignment and empowerment and really is there working properly with the teams and empowering them, the teams are then able to deliver more value. So just want to highlight that I still believe Agile coaches, Scrum Masters are necessary, but they need to refocus their energy on helping the teams be empowered, helping the teams be focused on what is really important. And the next thing, if the Agile coaches, the Scrum Masters, are truly change agents of the organization and not just people that are just go do your Agile stuff. Like, go. This is our Agile coach here. Look, he was a project manager, but now he's an Agile coach. Yes, he's really good. He makes sure all the tests are in Jira. No, if he's not involved and there is no bottom-up sort of bottom-up engagement, and they're not being changed, they're not flagging when things are not working, this will never change. And whenever I work on Agile transformations, I think one of the biggest things we do is we really enforce that Agile coaches are not Agile like knowledge masters, but they have the right mindset and the right attitude to help to change the organization, right? So this is very important for me. And I really believe that, and I really want to make it very clear, I believe that Agile coaching and Scrum Master is a very important role, but the focus has to move from getting Agile right to making sure we focus on value and we make sure that the teams are doing the right thing on creating value, right? So something to take away from this. And then finally, when the team is not engaging with customers, this is a big thing, and I have said it, and I think many people have repeated that many times, is that if you're building it just to get it done without actually thinking who you're building it for and how they'll use it, you'll never build the right thing. Like the whole build trap, right? That we build it, we released it, but nobody uses it. From a business perspective, that is a success. It has been released. From a value perspective, that is not success, and it wasn't done properly. I did work for a telco where they were building a new app for their users, 6 teams all working in 2-week sprints, getting things done. two funny things, they never actually talked to each other. So at one point, they were all building things in different directions. So when the final big day of releasing MVP 0, as they called it, came, none of the things worked, like none of them. And the funniest thing, they had all these amazing features, they forgot about one, to allow the users to register, right? So it was quite a funny coincidence. So they built an app with all, like you could 17 different ways to receive your SIM card. You could add, like you could tag your conversations with different colors, but you couldn't register to use the app. So that was no, because no one felt that they were responsible for it, right? And so it was quite a funny solution. And the way it was rechanged, there was one team that main purpose was to focus on customers instead of having 6 teams that just focus on getting things done. But there's many, many more stories, and I'm sure you've also have them and experienced them in your professional lives, where not talking to customers makes you realize that you have been going in the wrong direction the whole time. So is it possible to engage customers during the sprint? Is it possible to get out of the building? Yes. I mean, if you read Lean UX or any other successful companies, there is ways to approach customers, either through sort of like these paid invites that they come and you do it, or just going to a call center and just listening how customers are engaged and what are the problems they're bringing. There's different ways, but think of ways to engage the customer. So if you are a leader or you are talking to leaders, here are some things you can do. First of all, make sure that you fund based on customers. So you don't fund just to get the teams, but you fund in a way where you put the customer first. How are we spending our money to make our customers happy? Make sure that the teams are aligned along value streams, right? So instead of running in different directions, really focus and understand the flow of value from end to end. And I think we're going to have a talk about that right after this. So it seems like all these talks are very connected. And this was not planned, but I feel like we're all talking about very similar things. That's good. Set the direction for a vision. And a lot of times people think it's just like this mumbo jumbo kumbaya stuff. Let's have a vision. Oh, let's look at how Google, like, be the #1 company. Is that a vision? Not really. A lot of times that's what I see, like, be the #1 telco in the world. Look, great, but is that really where you want to go? Think about what is that vision and really then communicate it and connect it to goals. Use objectives and key results in a proper way. I believe that is a big unlock to make these things happen. And many more. Allow and encourage transparency. It's okay that things don't go according to plan. Be open about it and be transparent about it. And again, this is a big change in mindsets and behaviors. And finally, talk about trust. And on the other hand, talk about trust, but also don't create a culture of avoiding conflict. Be open to conflict. Be open to have people with different opinions. And I believe this is what leaders need to do. As a team member, what can you do? Well, ask why. Challenge the product owner. Challenge what is in the backlog and why are we doing the things we're doing. Spend time on creating personas. Those really help to understand who your customer is. I have seen many, many teams with no idea who are they building their product for. And it's not a hard exercise, right? Really build personas, create them, refine them, but understand who are you building this for. Do sprint reviews in a cool way. Invite your customers. Allow them to come. What are you afraid of? I mean, this is something any one of us can do. Finally, I think ask questions. Ask questions and ask questions. And it's okay to ask any type of question as long as it also brings us to a better understanding of why are we doing, what are we, and why are we doing, and what is the reason for doing the work we're doing. So, doesn't need to be a revolution. I don't think it's a revolution. It's just a next step of moving into a more value-driven organization, into moving into a bit of thinking and bringing a purpose to our personal work lives, right? I think it's something that's sometimes missing, that we just run and run without actually thinking, why are we running? And a lot of times people get discouraged and leave companies because they're just tired of constantly running without a reason or an understanding why are they running where they're running. So challenge how you think about your work, and it comes from you. You need to start doing this. Don't expect others to do it for you. Encourage everyone to think about the customers. Really, I think it's a simple thing, and for me, it's really difficult to sometimes understand, like, why not? Oh, because we don't know who our customer is. Here you go. Let's talk about it. Let's find out who our customers is. And finally, move towards change the organization with the organization. Work with your organizations to change it, to make it successful, to make it value-driven, to make it customer-focused. I think that will be it from me. Of course, I do encourage you to fill out the survey. This QR code will take you to the survey. Please fill it out. The more people fill it out, the more teams we have in the survey, the better our results will be. There is an article coming which we will publish. Of course, all of you will get it. And now I think it's time for questions. I try to finish on time. I got a very clear feedback that I need to finish on time. Any questions? Sure. Yeah, I think so. Yes. It will be available. Good. In PDF. With a barcode and a password that you have to, pay to. No. Any other questions? Was this interesting? I gave a show of hands. Was this interesting? Okay. Whew. Okay, good. Sure. Okay.
I have one question. Is it any plan in the PST environment, let's say, to implement the results of those activities in the next Scrum Guide, for example? Do you think about it? Do you believe it's possible, or?
I think they've already implemented in the 2020 when they brought in the product goal and they reshaped the way that sprint planning is done. And I think value was always in the Scrum Guide, if you think about it. And there's always a lot, and how you interpret is always on the hands of the teams, right? So I don't think it will be as explicit. And I don't know. I wasn't in any of the discussions where they were saying to do sprint Scrum Guide 2022 where we talk about it. But I think where we talk with the PSTs, where they work with clients, where they work with teams, they actually highlight this as a need. So in a way, it's more of us making you aware of this fact and really rethinking how you work in Scrum or Agile in general. And it's now up to you to make this happen. I don't think Scrum Guide is going to make this as an explicit point.
I agree a little bit, because it was strange that when you showed the slide about the approach that Scrum Masters are trying to force the team to use the correct Scrum, actually almost everything that was on the picture was outside of the Scrum Guide. Yeah. So you had to practice like velocity and so on, which were not the
yeah, exactly. But that's the question I always like. User stories are also not, and then we do these user stories as a developer. I'm going this is where I mean, like at one point, and I think it also comes from maybe the PSTs in some regions just adding all of this additional flavors, and then people not really thinking or challenging how they're going to apply these flavors to their work.
Tomasz, I have a question, unless you're done. Would you like to? Okay.
But I agree with you 100%.
So I have a question or comment, actually, because on one hand, you say that the Agile coaches focus too much on doing Scrum right.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we say that the team doesn't focus on value.
Yeah.
Which is somehow contradicting to doing Scrum right. I mean, my understanding was that Scrum is supposed to be focused on value, and
it's a good comment. I think sure. what I really meant was that they make sure that all the boxes are checked, right? That the team has all the practices in place, all the tools in place, and then
so like mechanical.
Yes, mechanical thinking instead of actually making sure that they use it to bring the value to the top. It becomes mechanical, or sort of like And I mean, the whole topic about zombie scrum, right? Or making it feels like, okay, we're doing sprint 27 and it feels like all the other, like nothing changes. It becomes a very boring sort of way of doing stuff. This is also, I think many of you have observed that. So this is where, if you think of value, if you think of your customers, I think it brings back the excitement to working in an agile way, right? Because if it becomes mechanical, then I think the excitement is lowered. But then you have to think, why is it so mechanical? What are you missing? And usually, based on our research, is the lack of focus on value.
Thanks. Understood. Anyone else has
This
a question?
side, maybe. No? Back of the room. Front of the room.